those of you who are new to Engineerica, welcome. We develop an academic center management software for higher education, including academia. This helps institutions manage tutoring centers, advising, writing centers, SI programs, and many other student support services. So really quick, we are offering a free trial. So if you're not currently using academia, this allows your institution the opportunity to experience the full platform for an entire semester completely free. We have features such as appointment scheduling, attendance tracking, reporting, tutor scheduling, and overall center management. So if you're interested in learning more after today's webinar, we'd be happy to connect with you and answer some questions. I also want to take a moment to invite everyone to our 2027 Academic Center Summit taking place from February 7th to 9th in Orlando, Florida. This summit brings together learning professionals from across the country to share best practices, innovative ideas, and practical strategies for supporting student success. Along with educational sessions led by experienced professionals, attendees can also participate in hands-on software training, network with colleagues, and exchange ideas with peers from a variety of institutions. So if you're looking to bring new ideas to your campus or simply want to connect with others in the learning community, we hope you'll consider joining us, and we'll share more information about that in the chat during today's webinar. All right, now it is my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Anna Lennick. Anna is the Director of Integrated Academic Support Services at Delaware State University, where she has led the department for the past 12 years. She brings more than 30 years of experience in education, beginning her career as a high school mathematics teacher before transitioning into higher education. Throughout her career, Anna has remained passionate about teaching and student success, continuing to serve as an adjunct mathematics instructor while leading innovative academic support programs. She believes tutoring and supplemental instruction are much more than the academic support services. There are also opportunities to develop future leaders. Under her leadership, peer tutors and SI leaders are empowered through professional development, leadership opportunities, and meaningful responsibilities that help build confidence and transferable career skills. And is also an active contributor to the learning assistance profession, regularly presenting at regional and national conferences and sharing practical, sustainable strategies that help institutions strengthen student success. We're very excited to have her here with us today as she shares her insights on developing leadership opportunities for peer educators. So please join me in welcoming Anna Lennick. Anna, thank you for being here today. I'll go ahead and turn things over to you.
Thank you. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. And a special thank you to you, Rose, for the wonderful introduction, and for Academia and Engineerica for the opportunity to share with colleagues from across the profession. I'm excited to share ideas so that we can incorporate them to our student success. So as Rose said, I am Anna Lennick and the Director of Integrated Academic Support Services at Delaware State University. On a quick note, before we begin, throughout today's presentation, I'll use the term peer educators to refer collectively to tutors, SI leaders, embedded tutors, and other learning assistants. I found if I say tutors and SI leaders, it's a mouthful, so I'm just going to put it under peer educators. And then your institution using different titles, you'll use that terminology. So I'm just going to reiterate what Rose said. Throughout my career, I strongly believe that my role is twofold within academic success. One is the purpose of the learning centers, which is to provide the academic support to students so that they can succeed during their college years. But also, I strongly believe to develop our peer educators into confident professionals who gain leadership, communication, and career-ready skills that extend far beyond their time in college. So you'll hear me speak to both throughout the presentation. Also, you'll hear me throughout the presentation refer to we. You'll hear me say we. And I say that intentionally because I am fortunate to work alongside professional staff who also share the same philosophy, the same beliefs. Together, I believe we've built a culture where peer educators are viewed as not only employees, but also as emerging leaders with the potential to make meaningful contributions to our learning centers, our campus, and then for their own professional growth. So as a result, of these beliefs, we began to look for ways to help our peer educators grow into leaders, and not just see themselves as tutors. We created leadership experiences for them. Um, and as we did that, we also discovered something that I don't believe we had anticipated. And that was the opportunity for us, the professional staff, to expand our services, strengthen our operations, and build campus partnerships, while also being able to explore new initiatives that we simply wouldn't have the capacity to accomplish on our own. And that's why we realize it's a win-win model. We saw our peer educators gaining that leadership experience, the transferable career skills, while at the same time our learning centers was increasing its capacity, its innovation, and its overall impact on student success. So today I'd like to share that journey with you, along with some practical ideas that I hope you can adapt for your own learning centers. But before we jump into that model, let me briefly introduce DSU to you. Well, actually, let me introduce myself to you first, a little more. As Rose shared my background in my introduction, I'm not going to go over it in details. I'll just simply say that in over 30 years in education, I can truly say that one thing has remained constant. I've always been passionate about helping students learn, whether that's in my role in teaching courses. I still keep my feet wet by teaching college algebra online, or if it's working with tutors and the peer educators in the academic support. The role does help support students in their being able to succeed. And on a lighter note, yes, as you can see on the slide, those are my hermit crabs. I keep hoping that one of them will, move into a Superman or a Batman or have a baseball shell in there, but they seem perfectly happy with the plain ones. Maybe one day they'll become that superpower. So that's a little bit about me. Now let me introduce you to Delaware State University. DSU is a historically Black college and university, an HBCU, and we serve approximately 6,300 students. As you can see on our slides, we service a diverse student population across multiple campus locations. And because of that, our Learning Center has to be flexible, collaborative, and creative in how we provide support. We want to be able to meet the students where they're at. Also, you can see from the stats, a couple of stats I put on the screen, that it reminds us that our students, they arrive with tremendous potential. And so our students will benefit greatly from the academic support, the mentoring, whether they're coming into our centers to seek the services or they're coming into our centers to become a tutor, SI leader, a peer educator. And also for you, whether your institution is large or small, public, private, 2-year, 4-year, the concept of intentionally developing peer educators into leaders can be adapted to fit your own campus culture. So now that you have a sense of DSU, let me give you a snapshot of our Learning Center. Integrated Academic Support Services, or we like our acronyms here at DSU. So you'll hear us refer as IASS. So I mentioned the we earlier, and as you can see on the screen, that is the professional staff. And each of us, we oversee different areas where in each of our roles, we're balancing the student support with the centers that we oversee. We're training our peer educators. We're developing partnerships. Each of us are assessing our programs. We're marketing our services, and we're planning new initiatives. But as I said earlier, we work together as one team to support students across all our programs. And that's why I continue to use that we. And as you're looking at the screen, like many of you, we are wearing lots of hats and we're juggling a lot of balls. We've got a lot to offer our students. So with that, what I'd like to do is have the first poll. We'll ask, a question that says, how do we continue providing the high quality services while also finding time to innovate and meet the changing needs of our students? So as you're looking at the screen, on the left-hand side, you will see all the balls that your Learning Center may be juggling. Now take a look at them. A lot of you might be looking at that one and nodding your head. And then have you answer the first question. With all of these balls that we're juggling in our learning centers, all the things that we like to do, which balls feel the heaviest right now? Okay, right now it looks as if the top two, expanding services with limited staffing and marketing and student outreach, seem to be the two top contenders. Thank you, thank you everyone for responding. I will say with the top two contenders, they actually meet what we do, what we feel is one of the heaviest balls. Specifically, the challenge where we have so many ideas. The professional staff, we have so many ideas that we want to bring for our students as well as our peer educators. But our challenge is how can we provide those high quality services while balancing limited time and resources, as well as the marketing and outreach. So we have these ideas, but how do we get the students to participate in them? How do we get them to utilize our services? And then if they were to come, if we got the marketing to really work, how do we be able to provide those services? And so what I'll discuss next is how we approach meeting that challenge. So it's good to see everyone having your responses. So I appreciate that. Okay, so how did we meet that challenge? As I mentioned earlier, our belief is that we're not here, our responsibility is to support the students who come through our centers. But again, it's to help our peer educators grow as leaders. So instead of seeing our peer educators as students who just staff our centers, who just do our sessions, we began seeing them as emerging leaders who have talents and ideas that we can tap into and then help us move our department forward. And this model shows that on the one side, our peer educators from this model and providing them the opportunities for those leadership skills, they gain confidence. They do gain those leadership skills and what it takes to develop them. They've also gained a sense of ownership as well as, hands-on experiences that are going to prepare them for their future careers and whatever goals that they set for themselves. Well, at the same time, on the other side, our learning center benefits because now we have expanded programming. It allows us that opportunity. We're able to build stronger operations. We're able to explore the new initiatives. We're able to have collaborations across campus. It allows greater capacity for students to use our services. And, with these two, it's created, I'll say this. We created the leadership opportunities because it's our belief, as I said earlier. But the increased capacity is what developed into this win-win model, how we look at it. So with that, let's give you some examples. Our first pathway is going to be the leadership through programming, what we provided for them. And part of this is because that's where we first began involving our peer educators as leaders, is through our programming. As you can see on the screen, our workshops, our resources, our special events. And what we came to realize is because we wanted to be able to offer increased services for our students, we also realized we couldn't do everything ourselves. So we began to involve our peer educators from the planning to the brainstorming to the assessment in these areas. For example, the workshops. Um, our peer educators, they facilitate workshops which focus on general academic success topics such as time management, exam preparation, and then other workshops were developed in collaboration with faculty that were tailored to the needs of a specific course. But one reason we feel the workshops have been successful, let me say this first, and the leadership part was rather than handing the peer educators a completed presentation, just here's the PowerPoint and speak to it. What we began to do is we had our peer educators create their own presentation using examples and materials from previous workshops. So we mentored them, we provided a guideline and outline, but then they created their own presentation. And throughout the process, they're mentored by the professional staff as they research the topic, as they organize the content, as they develop the presentation itself, and then practicing their presentation skills. During their first semester presenting, the professional staff, we attend the workshops to provide the encouragement, the feedback, and support as needed. But as the peer educators gain confidence and experience, we, the professional staff, have the ability to step back, and eventually the peer educators are able to facilitate the workshops independently. But another piece that makes this successful is we try to hire peer educators early in their academic careers, often as sophomores. And this allows us the time to develop them over multiple semesters. And then, for example, if our study skills tutor, we hired Michael in his second semester sophomore year, and now he's ready to graduate in May. But we also hired another study skills tutor who Michael, based on his experience of being a leader, now can mentor the incoming study skills tutor so that when Michael leaves in May, we have someone to take on the mantle. And then that's helped because then, yes, the professional staff, we're still there guiding them, we're still offering the mentoring, but now we added another layer of having our peer educator take on the leadership skills and the mentoring skills for future ones. Another example is our writing resource development project, for which the writing tutors create instructional resources that benefits the students in their sessions or as an additional resource that they can go to. But at the same time, these instructional resources allow the opportunities for the writing tutors to strengthen their own understanding of the writing process, which in turn makes them more effective as a writing tutor. And by having the writing tutors take on ownership of this project, it also allowed our assistant director of the writing studio to then focus on additional priorities. Again, this isn't where, Dr. Pathak just, sends them off and go ahead and do writing. There is mentorship on his part, but the veteran writing tutors then help mentor the newer writing tutors who want to participate in this project. And along the same philosophy, the special events. We've had our peer educators who help plan, promote, and facilitate those special events. And chances are many of you, you may be already offering these academic workshops or these special event types. And what I'd like you to do, if you haven't already, is rather than reinventing the wheel and starting over by adding something new, just think about how now the opportunity is there for you to expand the role of a peer educator in the programs that you already have. Okay, so as I said, programming was our starting point, but we quickly realized leadership opportunities weren't limited only to workshops. We started to recognize that some of our opportunities existed behind the scenes, the day-to-day work that keeps a learning center running. And as many of you know, that day-to-day work can be exhaustive. So that's our second leadership pathway through operations. So here are some examples. One example is our public relations assistant. Rather than having professional staff manage our social media, I will say Mr. Blank, he's more savvy at it than I may be. I still like a good old-fashioned book than sitting on the phone and just looking at TikTok trends, as an example. But we also both recognized that we can empower our peer educators, this public relation assistant, to develop the content, to suggest new ideas, to help shape our online presence. Um, you know, and again, as a PR assistant gains experience, we hope to have some, we're planning on having another PR assistant in the pipeline so that when the current one graduates, the other one can step into the role. So the PR assistant is taking on that leadership role of developing our social media content as well as looking forward in helping the new PR assistant go into that role. As many of you know, and it was one of the top contenders of what's the heaviest ball, the marketing. So what we've done is we've involved our peer educators in the marketing aspect through having them go to classroom visits. Again, the professional staff, we provide the talking points. We work with them. Information table. So instead of us going out to the student center and calling in the students, we have our peer educators doing it. And also with the promotional materials. And what we noticed, which was really interesting, is, many of the times our peer educators, they might be hesitant in doing these marketing because they're thinking their role is, oh, I'm just going to tutor in a session. But what we saw is that when one tutor volunteered to take on this type of leadership opportunities, other peer educators became interested because then they then saw not only were they playing an important role helping their peers in a tutorial or an SI session, they also saw that they could take on skills that would help them gain confidence, and more leadership skills and experience as they develop. So, these opportunities, they extended it in helping us improve our day-to-day operations. Another one is our peer educators have created training videos for our administrative procedures. And what that allowed us to do is for new tutors, it's a resource that they can revisit. We can point them towards, oh, a fellow peer created a training video, a how-to. And so it gives another resource. It reduces the professional staff of having to continuously repeat the training of the how-tos. It gave the opportunity for the peer educator to develop what they themselves learned and what they needed to do those day-to-day operations. Other opportunities that we create through operations were, having the peer educators contribute to revising our handbook, reviewing procedures. This semester, we're going to have them help us rethink our mission statement. And these projects, they send an important message to our peer educators. They say your ideas matter, and you can help shape the future of our department. Again, it's that message. We don't see you as just coming in for work. We see you as an important member of IASS. Okay. And with that, our next leadership, pathway is how could we offer opportunities within our department? Okay. So the next slide, what we discovered is that our peer educators can serve as ambassadors for IASS because many of them already have connections and credibility with other students and campus partners. As we came to know them, we heard, oh, they're part of this organization or they're a leader of this. So one example is our faculty and staff workshops. We invite colleagues from across the campus, career services, counseling, the psychology department, to present to our peer educators for our ISST meetings or our CRLA workshops. And what this does is it provides valuable professional development for our peer educators, but it also demonstrates to them the importance of collaboration. Again, we don't have to do it all alone. And we want the peer educators to see that. We've also expanded our partnerships with student organizations, the Greek Life, or as I mentioned, the Men's and Women's Senate. And we found that many of our peer educators are already involved in organizations. They're members, and some of them even have elected positions within the organizations. And that was a pipeline in how we can reach students to use our services. So we had our peer educators take the lead in planning structured study sessions for the students in their organizations. And this allowed our peer educators to gain that skill of planning, promoting, encouraging, and then at the study sessions themselves, facilitating it. Being the point person if they had, if the students had questions about study skills or how do I approach this. So we've seen this grow where, several times a semester we'll have our organizations utilize our spaces for these study group sessions. Another collaboration, which is one of my favorites, is involving or partnering with the advanced painting class to create murals for our learning centers. One of the things our peer educators shared with us is sometimes our walls were a little bland. There weren't enough posters or there wasn't enough color. And we do have a budget or lack of one. So we had to be creative. I'm like, I can't always, sometimes it's difficult for us to go ahead and buy the posters ourselves as professional staff. So what can we do? And so that's where this out of the box idea came. When it comes in terms of leadership, what we did is we provided our peer educators the opportunity to share the vision of what they would like to see on our walls. The art students themselves gained real world experience because they had to ask for ideas, then they had to draft their ideas, share it with us, ask for ideas and feedback, and then go back to the drawing board and fine tune it. And what we did is we created something meaningful not only for ISS and having artwork on our walls, but also for the students in the advanced painting class. And on the screen, those are two of our logos that the art students created. And then there are other ways that we can think outside of the box. We started some partnerships. They didn't quite come to fruition, but it doesn't mean that we're going to abandon them. It just means we're going to look for those opportunities when they arise. And, you know, one of the biggest lessons we learned through the leadership, through campus partnership is, as I said, the peer educators have the connections, perspectives that we may not. And so then we empower them to build those partnerships, which allows us to expand our reach while also helping the peer educators develop those leadership skills, the networking, the collaboration, the project management skills, which they'll take into their careers. Okay. The last pathway is, excuse me, the final leadership pathway is one where we created a culture of leadership within the Learning Center for professional growth. You know, one initiative that has helped us to have our peer educators gain that professional growth is through the paraprofessional board, which includes our leads. So we have one tutor from each of our centers, the Writing Studio, Math, SI, and I know I'm forgetting one, Tutorial Center. We have the Public Relations Assistant, and we have the Social Committee Chair, all be part of the paraprofessional board. And together, these student peer educators, they mentor new incoming peer educators. They help the professional staff facilitate portions of the team meetings. They help us plan the department events, such as our end of semester events, both in December and May. They encourage participation in professional development. They help the professional staff reinforce expectations with their peers. They provide valuable feedback on new initiatives. So that's how the win-win model, we've given the paraprofessional board the ability to grow as leaders, but then also provide us, the professional staff, the ability to expand. Another thing, one of the shifts is the leadership begins to multiply. So instead of every question or reminder or new idea coming from us, the experienced peer educators often become the first point of support for the newer team members. Also, you know, we encourage our peer educators to attend conferences, to present workshops, professional development workshops within our CRLA trainings. We have them attending conferences, webinars. And what this allows them to do is, especially when they're going to the webinars and the conferences, they're able to bring back ideas that will help strengthen our department. And that's great because it allows the professional staff for our role to shifting from managing every single detail to more coaching and mentoring and supporting our student leaders so they can be effective not only in the tutorial sessions, but also as a leader. But with all that being said, they're not here to replace professional staff because we still, you know, we have those things we need to do. We just see our peer educators as being an extension of who we are. Okay. So those are some of the examples of where, you know, of opportunities that we identified for our peer educators to take on leadership roles. And what I'd like to do now is kind of share with you some of the ways that we've developed the student leadership, because it's not, as you know, it's not just a matter of saying, here, go ahead, good luck, go ahead, be a leader. We see our role as developing those skills. Okay. You know, and what are some of our principles that we, you know, that guides us when we are developing our peer educators into leaders? Well, first, we like to involve our peer educators in the bigger picture. You know, We think it's important that they understand the department's mission, our goals, our challenges, so that they begin thinking like leaders instead of just simply showing up for a shift. Um, it also allows them to take ownership. Second, we believe in their potential before they believe in themselves. We've had peer educators tell us, oh, I can never present a workshop. We've had one peer educator who said, I didn't think I was that social, or I had, enough of those skills to be able to present when I took this job. And today, that particular tutor, she's one of our leads, and she's presented at a regional learning assistance conference. Um, so that belief. Third, don't expect everyone to lead in the same way. Get to know your peer educator so that we're able to play to their strengths. What do they feel they're strong in? And sometimes it may be in front. They can do the presentations, or it may be the behind the scenes. That's where their strength is. And as we're doing that for them, and gradually increase their independence. As I said earlier, we're not just going to throw something at them and say, go ahead and do it. We increase their independence so that they become more confident. They gain more of the skills. And also, we give them meaningful work. When we see opportunities, it's not just so that they can help us get busy work done. We want it to be meaningful as they do this. And finally, don't be afraid to let students make mistakes. As long as they're supported, mistakes become learning opportunities, their confidence grows, and they learn. And the other thing I would like to say, because I mentioned it earlier, these principles, these opportunities may not require that additional funding. They simply require to think differently about the role our peer educators can play within our departments. And many times these opportunities or what they need to do for their role in leadership occurs within their working shift. So another concern might be, well, we need to pay them extra, or, they're working outside of their hours. A lot of times we can incorporate it within their time that they're here working with us. So, in my experience, it seems like a lot of work, but I also believe by investing in the peer educators, they'll exceed our expectations, and they will help complement what the professional staff does for our learning centers. Okay. Real quickly, because I want to get to a little more, but we've talked about the leadership opportunities. We've talked about our philosophy about developing the student leaders. What you see on the screen now is, did it make a difference? And I have to say that yes. Again, the feedback that we've received from our peer educators is that these opportunities do make an impact. And they, themes have emerged. First is confidence. Many of the peer educators began thinking that they were just going to be tutors. A student was going to come in, they were going to help the student understand the concepts, and on your way. But by the end of the year, what our survey showed is they actually began to see themselves as leaders, as taking on the roles of being a mentor, being more professional, being able to present. Second, another theme that came out of our feedback from peer educators is the professional growth. They consistently tell us they strengthen skills like communication, collaboration, organization, initiative, and leadership. And again, what they're mentioning, these are all transferable skills that they'll be able to use throughout the career, and they're seeing the value of that. And finally, there's a stronger sense of belonging and ownership. I think I've said this before, but I believe it's important to say they simply don't come in and tutor and just leave. They feel connected to the department and they take pride in helping shape its success. So, having this feedback, it reinforces what we as the professional staff observe, that when you have, when you make the students feel trusted, when you have them know that their ideas matter, you're giving them the opportunities to grow, they often exceed our expectations. They rise to the occasion. And at the same time, again, that win-win model, our department benefits as a byproduct because now we're able to expand our services, introduce new initiatives, and strengthen our operations. Okay, so with that being said, I've done the talking about, again, our pathways of leadership opportunities, our philosophy in developing it, some of the did it work, the success from the peer educator's view. Now what I like to do is ask you another question. Let's get another poll going to your learning center. So as you've been listening, and as you can see on the screen, on the left hand, we have all those balls that are juggling. Now, what I like you to do is kind of think about what ball could you hand to your peer leader. Now, after these examples, what responsibility could your tutors or your SILEs begin leading or supporting you this semester?
And it looks kind of even, doesn't it, those first three options?
They do. And they also reflect what some of the heaviest balls that they had chosen at the beginning. So that's good, creating the resources, the marketing materials, the outreach. So that is, thank you, everyone. I appreciate your responses. What that then does is your poll is developing the workshops and creating the resource marketing. What I like to now do is have you start an action plan. And I don't want you to think that everything has to be done in one day, but this presentation is the opportunity for you to start thinking about what is the one opportunity. So you've kind of identified it in the poll. Now what I'd like to do is kind of have you start doing, for just maybe 1 minute, start thinking about your action plan. Where could you start? Because it's important, because a lot of times we go to webinars and conferences and we just listen to everything and we take notes. But then we get back to offices and the day-to-day just takes over. But if we can kind of leave with an idea of an action plan, it might help us actually start that ball rolling. So on the screen, you can see the action plan, and Rose.
Yes. There's going to be a materials icon in the upper right corner. It's going to look like a piece of paper with a paper clip. And in there, you're going to see a win-win action plan where you can download the file and work on this worksheet.
Yeah. And because of time, I'm not going to read through the example that I have. That was just something I put there to help you as you start organizing and you start thinking. So as you're downloading the document and you start thinking, that your response from the poll that you just took, that ball that you first identified as maybe being the heaviest ball, now you're saying maybe this is the opportunity where I can start the leadership opportunities. How can you go about organizing those opportunities, and that's what this table is here to help you do, kind of organize the steps. The first and foremost is, what is that opportunity, that ball? And then start thinking about who could lead it, those strengths. And what is some of the action steps? And we do have to think about what resources are needed. Some of it is just as simple as, we're going to create a PowerPoint. No resources are really needed. Everyone has PowerPoint, Canva, etc. But then sometimes funding might be in play, and then you have to kind of strategize a little more. Okay, so as I'm kind of talking through, I hope many of you are already are jotting something down. I'm looking at the time, so I don't know if I don't believe I have the 5 to 7 minutes that I would like to have you complete it. So, Rose, keep me
I
honest
think we're
here.
good on time. Yeah, I think we're good on time.
So, give everyone about 3, 4 minutes.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, so let's give everyone 3, 4 minutes to start jotting ideas, filling in what you can within these boxes. Let's finish up then. And then, we'll be staying on later. So if you do have any questions, I'd be glad to stick around. But I do thank everyone for start thinking about your balls. Well, which ones you're juggling. But as we conclude, the first, I wanted to share that it goes back to my very first comments in what our my belief is, and along with mine, also my professional staff. As I said, I'm lucky. Um, we didn't provide these opportunities just to find more work for our peer educators. Um, we truly believed in finding meaningful opportunities for them to grow as leaders and professionals. We wanted to be able to give them the confidence. Um, and so, as this belief took place, as we were able to provide those opportunities, we did see our peer educators, we do see them become leaders and gaining the skills that we hope that they're able to take with them as they um, graduate and go into their professional career. But at the same time, we saw our learning center grow. We were able to expand our programs. We were able to strengthen partnerships across campus. We were able to improve our operations. But again, most importantly, we created a culture where students, they weren't simply coming in for work. We were creating our peer educators to feeling that they were helping to lead it. Um, so, you know, that was great. Um, and we continue to look forward to that. Okay. So, in conclusion, I do thank you for spending part of your day with me. Some of you might be eating your lunch as you were hearing me, because I know how it goes. It's 1 o'clock, it's lunchtime, and you're doing many things, multitasking, but I do appreciate it because these are the opportunities for us as learning professionals to hear ideas. I'd also like to thank Rose and Engineerica for the opportunity for me to share our story and bringing us together so that we can continue doing the good work that we do in providing support for students and helping them succeed. To you all, I hope you leave today with at least one idea that you can adapt for your own learning center. If you'd ever like to continue the conversation, I am more than happy to meet with you. I'd love to hear from you. And again, thank you. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I'll be sticking around if you have any questions. I know there were a couple in the chat.
Yes, thank you so much, Anna. We really appreciated having you here. We'll go ahead and answer some of the questions in the chat. Someone had asked if for more details on special events and to kind of go into more depth about some of those special events. I'm assuming to uh,
Sure.
yeah.
Um, the special events, I think we had, I'm gonna, whoops, let me just, I'm a visual person. So, okay. So when it comes to the special events, the candlelight journaling, that's something that was developed through our writing studio. A lot of times students come to the writing studio, they think of the writing studio or writing as just academic. But what we wanted to do is encourage students to also come to our centers for own personal, rather than always seeing it as a academic. And then with that hope, then they will continue to come to our writing studio for the academic help. So the candlelight journaling is we had one of our writing tutors lead a session where she offered some prompts. There was soft music in the background. We actually had some candles going, and it was just students journaling and the peer educator just really being there in the background to help guide them in this event. The Logic Lounge, that's something that we're definitely going to do. We had the idea last semester, but we're going to put it in place this coming fall. That's going to be for our QRC Math and Tutorial Center. They're going to lead it, the tutors, in that we're going to have stations. One is going to be puzzles. Another one might be Sudoku. Another one might be, I have to be honest, the peer educators, they're going to lead this. We have the initiative. We're going to have the peer educators plan it, come up with the ideas, have them create any materials that need to be done. I have a laminator, so I can support them that way. Here's a laminator, go ahead and laminate, create the worksheets. But that's how we plan on having our peer educators take ownership of this particular special event. So that's an idea. The Campus Quest is actually on that sheet, so I won't go into details on that one.
We had another question. I think it was relating to peer educators, like presenting to other peer groups. So they asked, have tutors put together a workshop for clients, MLA format, APA format, and Chicago style on different days? And then they said they've already presented to the peer tutoring group, but not to other students. So I'm not sure if they mean just maybe.
Yes, I think because they're saying they have already presented to the peer tutoring, but not to other. Yes, the workshops that I referenced, they are for students. So our peer educators, they have also presented for tutor trainings, like the CRLA topics, but mostly our our starting point was workshops for the students. Those study skills workshops, the time management, how do you study for a test, how do you, all those study skills topics. And also for the writing. So we do have our writing tutors present on MLA, APA format, the basics of writings. Dr. Pathak, if you're on the call, I'm sure there's a lot more topics, but I can't quite remember them all right now. So we have those workshops for the students, and this is where the peer educators, they create the presentation. We, the professional staff, we provide the guideline. We might provide some examples that we've done, but ultimately they create their own because they need to speak in their voice and how they're going to present it to the students. So they create the plan. For the very first time, they run it, for the first semester when they're doing this, they run it by the professional staff, who's particularly working with them. And then we'll sit in on the workshops for the first semester so that we can see how they're doing, have them, share some feedback about, like I'm hoping, on today's call, Rose will give me some feedback about how to present, that type of mentoring skills. And then passing the baton to a new tutor who'll be taking over those types of roles. That answer the question.
Yeah. We had another question. They said that they already have student leaders that do workshops and resource tables, but they need help more on the social media side.
Okay. So that's what we did with the PR assistant. Savannah, she first was a writing tutor, but then based on her major and having discussions, her strength was social media. And so that's where we tapped into the PR assistant. I'm going to be honest with you. I No, I think we have our own student account. We were able to give it. So, for example, when we created an account for our Instagram page, it's a very generic password so that if we have Savannah posting, she's able to do so. I don't know the technical part because Mr. Justin Blank on my staff takes care of that part of it for me. But there should be a way. It's defining the time to the post. And that's what I'll be honest with you, that's one of the reasons why this PR assistant is a great idea for us, because it's finding that time to post. I might have an idea and I'll send it to Savannah and say, oh, what about this idea for a post? Because I saw something. But she goes ahead and creates it. She posts it. There's one, I had a thought of riddle me this. So having a riddle each month. She created it all. So it definitely was one of the balls that we had to juggle and were able to pass it off. I'm not sure if I answered the question about how you can get the student to access the account.
All right, if anyone has any other questions, please go ahead and drop them soon.
I did answer the one that asked about how many peer educators we have.
Yes.
I did put it in the chat. But I will say currently we're about 45 to 50 per semester, but we are hiring more because of these opportunities, because we have been able to have our peer educators take on some leadership roles. The professional staff have been able to reach out to faculty and other departments on campus to partner up, and that means more opportunities to provide services for our students. For example, with the aviation department, before we didn't have an aviation tutor, but now we're looking into creating study sessions for students in aviation to come once a week and work with an aviation tutor. And it allowed me to do that outreach so that we can plan for that.
There was also a question, someone was asking more about Field Trip Friday and how you get funding for them to go to conferences.
Okay. So the Field Trip Friday is actually a Instagram post. And this is one that Savannah came up with, our PR assistant. She has our tutor, she films our tutors going to our centers. So like field trip, we're going to go to our downtown services because we have downtown services. We have 2 campuses. Or another example is we have an art studio, or no, an art gallery. Let me say that correct. We have an art gallery in the main campus library. I mean, it's separate from the library, but it's an art gallery. And so we have the tutor go to the art gallery and, kind of show students our campus is vibrant with lots of activities. And so we have the tutors kind of do that field trip. When it comes to funding, I have to say, in that regards, I have been lucky. With the one tutor that we went to the regional conference, it was a 1-day trip. We did end up staying overnight because actually, I didn't realize Maryland was almost 3 hours away drive. So it was just the hotel and the conference itself. So the expenses were minimal. So I was able to have our department also with Title III funded. So because we're under the grant where we provide services for students, we're able to kind of get funding through that way. Okay, did we answer them all?
Yes, I think so. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We're going to have an exit survey at the end of this webinar, so feel free to fill that out. And if you have any questions, please contact Rosa at engineerica.net. And if you guys were interested in the free trial, that'll be a part of the survey question. But Anna, we really appreciate having you on here, and we thank you for your presentation.
I thank you for the opportunity. In the past few years, it's become a passion of sharing what we do because I always say I'm not territorial because if it means success for our students, it's again a win-win in helping our centers grow.
Oh, I love that, Anna. Oh, well, thank you everyone for joining. And once again, Anna, thank you for presenting. And we look forward to seeing you at our next month's webinar.
You got it.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.